Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease. I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute for medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. Hey y'all, so ready for everything that we're about to start to uncover. And I want to give you some reminders. My thyroid guide is available. You can go to bit.ly.com/thyroid guide. Now, I need to be really open and honest with you all today about this particular episode because it literally is so taboo, it feels like, but we need to talk about it more. And that's depression. Now, mental health can be something that a lot of people do not like to talk about. It's uncomfortable. When you talk to some people about being depressed, they're like, maybe you should go talk to someone. Have at it. Or they're so open and honest about it that you really don't know what to do because you want to help. But at the same time, you're still just like, I don't know if I'm qualified to really and truly give you advice. So much of this has been a very common theme in my life, and I really just want to talk about it with you guys to see if you do, in fact, have the same experience or similar experiences. Now, first things first is, if you're like me, you may have had situations where you're extremely fatigued, you're sluggish, you're gaining weight uncontrollably, you have tingling in your hands and your fingers, and your fingernails are crazy, your hair is falling out, everything is swollen, your period's changing, not to mention the fact that your flow might be really heavy, and you're so tired of going to the doctor over and over and over for them to say, you're fine, you're just stressed. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that became common. And I couldn't really tell if doctors were being facetious or if they just didn't know what to do. And there were just so many emotions and things going through my mind, all of which made me incredibly depressed. Now, depression and having a thyroid disease are two different things, but at the same time, you can have depression if your hypothyroid or your thyroid gland is underactive. And it's so hard to diagnose the two. And that was definitely my experience. I remember being in college, trying to talk to my class dean and my professors, and I've talked about this in the past episode, but I didn't go into detail in terms of how all of that really and truly made me feel. And I felt awful, particularly around my menstrual cycles. I got so depressed, mostly because I was already fatigued and my joints already bothered me and I already had everything under the sun going on. But when my cycle came, it made everything 10 times worse. So here I am trying to figure out what's going on. I'm bleeding, I'm uncomfortable, and yet again, I'm presenting at the ER or the health center, and no one knows what's wrong with me. After a while, you're kind of over it. And that was me for so long. And in last week's episode, I talked about seasonal depression. Well, when the season changes, it gets darker. Depending on where you live, it can feel like winter can last forever. Not to mention every month you have a period. okay, here comes twice the amount of depression of what I already had. Raise your hand if you've experienced that same thing as well. If you're driving, don't do that. But it's so difficult. And the way that I have been able to come out of that is I had to figure out what activities, what things, and what people could I surround myself with that would help me. Now, if you're early in your diagnosis journey, that might take a while for you, especially if you're taking medication. It may take a while for them to get your dose right, but you'll start to notice that you do in fact feel better. However, you also, depending on where you live and the sun and all that fun stuff, I found that vitamin D helps my depression. I've also found that sometimes I have to make sure that I'm taking a vitamin B complex vitamin to help with the tingling and the numbness in my hands and fingers. Now, naturally, you'll want to check with your physician about all of this, but those are the things that I've started to learn really and truly help. Now, as it relates to the things and the activities that I can do, I love music. I love to dance. I love to sing. I love to do every type of creative movement that involves me using my body. And exercise is also another thing that definitely keeps the depression at bay. And to be very honest, right now is just one of those times for me where, again, the seasons are starting to change. We're going into fall. My cycle is coming, and I don't feel all that happy. I just don't. And it's hard for me to get up in the morning because I literally, even though I'm doing all those things, I still get tired. And I'm in a new position at work, and I'm trying to do everything under the sun and manage the emotions of myself, of my family, of my friends, at work, everything. And it just weighs on you. And for me, that's hard because everyone expects me to be that quote unquote strong friend or that strong sister or that strong daughter or the mature one. And sometimes I just don't want to be. Sometimes I want to be the one that's consoled, but it's so challenging. So with that, what I've had to do is surround myself with people that get it. And that is yet another reason why I created my Healthy Together group. It's a big reason why I created this podcast, and it's why I do what I do, because when I talk to you all, when I get to check on you, even if it's late at night, just knowing that you're okay and giving you support, knowing that you know what that feels like, lifts my mood, and it makes me happy to serve you. So when you see me asking those questions, whether it's on social media or here on the podcast, it's because I really and truly genuinely care about you, because you all have helped to keep me going. And that gives me an endorphin rush, because it's just nice to be able to see someone else smile or to brighten their day. And I am very much so a service-oriented person. So if I can serve you all, or if I call my dad up or my best friend to see how she's doing or how he's doing, because I have 2 guy best friends and 2 girl best friends. So it's just cool talking to them and seeing how they're doing. But also, I try very hard to, from a food perspective, make sure that I'm eating well and I'm not putting junk food in my body. And believe me, it's that time of the month. All I want are cookies and chocolate and everything else that I cannot have, that I know will send me into a tailspin. And yes, I had 2 brownies today, and I barely made it in the house before my stomach went nuts. Hashtag truth. So it's just so much going on, and sometimes I have a very hard time even articulating what I feel inside, because you have that concerned friend and they're like, well, how can I help? And you're like, well, if I tell you this, I got to tell you that. And if I say my joints hurt, you're going to be like, what does that mean? And I don't really feel like explaining it because they're going to say, well, you were fine yesterday. Yeah, I know, but I didn't feel good and I was faking it. So, do I be honest? Or do I just give you the answer to make you go away? It's so much stuff that you have to think about. And as a supervisor, I have to be very cautious as well, because even when I don't feel good, if an employee sees me and they're looking at me like, girl, what's wrong with you? They might misinterpret that and think, oh, well, now she hates me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to think about. There's so much to do. And I don't have children, but I'm concerned that if I did have kids, they look at me like, girl, what's wrong with you? Are you going to feed us tonight? Like, for real? I'm hungry. Can I have some food? And I might start crying because I'm hungry too. And I don't know what to do for them. So it's all of that stuff that constantly runs through my mind, which naturally makes me even more tired than what I already was. Please tell me you can relate, because I'm really being honest here and kind of laying it all out. But it's just so important to me to be transparent with you all, because I'm not about to stand here and make it seem like, oh, now that I've been diagnosed and I've been doing all these things, that everything is peachy, because I'd be lying. I would be lying. So I'm not going to do that to you, because I love you and I care about you. So now that we've kind of gone through that and I've had my moment of just being honest with you all, I just want you to also just take some time to look at, are there times when you encounter that depression? Is it seasonal? Is it during your menstrual cycle? And when's the last time you got your thyroid levels checked? Because sometimes we just don't know until we get our blood work done. And you can say, oh, well, that's why I was feeling like crap. Oops. Or like me, for a while, I was using almond milk in my oatmeal. And I would have that right after I took my thyroid medicine after waiting an hour. And I'm like, why do I feel so sluggish and silly? Well, almonds and almond milk are calcium-rich foods which interfere with your thyroid medication uptake, which means it's not doing anything. So that's where I was. My thyroid levels started going crazy. And I felt the same way. I also noticed that I was very, very temperamental during that time as well. So there was that. The last thing that I will say is to also have a conversation with your doctor as well if you're taking birth control. And this was something that was a little difficult for me to talk about because I had been on it for so long. Primarily because I was not having normal periods in the first place. And I'm sorry, but I was one angry individual on birth control, and I didn't realize that until I got off of it. So that also contributed for me personally to my level of depression. So there are just so many things that can go into our moods and everything else. I really want you to be proactive about taking care of yourself, because you matter and you're important to me. And I really want to make sure that you are your best self. So please let me know how you're doing. You can reach me at Joyful Ebony on all social media platforms. I would love to have a conversation with you and chat with you. And even recently on my Instagram stories, I asked, who would be willing to get on the phone with me to have a conversation about how I can better serve you about more thyroid health related things. So I encourage you to follow me on those platforms, particularly Instagram, because I'm on it a lot. And I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're struggling with and how I can help. So with that, next week, we're going to be talking about meal planning. I have not forgot about our special friends, just waiting for some logistics to come together to interview them. And yeah, I will talk to you guys next week. So be whole, be well, and take care. Okay, thyroid warriors, get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, be great, reflect on your triumphs, and as always, be well. Take care.